Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Ponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. Thank you so much for jumping on again with us today. I am so excited to introduce you to Sarah. I want to just preface this with, we had a whole conversation prior to recording, and I am so excited because I feel we're so aligned. And funny enough, we live like almost down the street from each other. So it's crazy. We didn't know each other before this though. So Sarah is a remote HR lady, speaker, artist, nonprofit, co-founder, and all around Jill of all trades. I love that. She is also a mental health advocate, near-death experience survivor, sexual assault survivor, suicide survivor, and an author with a new memoir coming out in 2026 titled Dead Serious: How Death Made Me Laugh at Life. I love that. By sharing her own struggles with anger and addiction, she seeks to inspire others to make big changes in their own lives and see the light and a little humor in the dark moments, which I love. We were just talking about those not so bright moments. So Sarah, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to Against All Odds.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. So obviously I glided over a little bit of those things. Give us a little bit of your background. What is your Against All Odds story?
Well, I think what makes me most against all odds is the near-death experience type experiences, just because when I talk about my story, the first thing I say is that I really shouldn't be here to tell it,
Yeah.
because there are those moments where if you hear somebody was diagnosed with cancer, you know that there's going to be odds of them surviving the stage that they caught it in, the odds of the surgeries, things like that. But with my experiences, I think what was shocking about them is just how accidental and sudden they were. And some of them were bizarre and some of them had low chances, but it's still the fact that it happened. And so I think more often when I look at the compilation that will be in my memoir, it's the fact that life kept beating you down in this way or kept one thing after another, and you're not really able to catch your breath. And I
Yeah.
think it's that experience that really relates to people. But that's the one that says, I'm so grateful to be here, because in any one of those moments, it could have gone very differently.
Yeah, I can relate very much to that. I think I was against all odds from like conception in utero and till
Like, what chapter are we talking about?
yeah, my mom had a miscarriage and I stayed. So I was a fraternal twin. But normally, when we think of like when somebody goes through a miscarriage, the body just expels everything. And I was like, nope.
You just kind of held on. You're like,
Yeah,
hey.
I was like, nope, not today. Not today. I am here to stay. And so from that, I feel like I've always had that, I don't know, maybe I'm just forged from
Mm.
so much that I was meant for something greater. Maybe that's why I'm so verbal with what I've gone through. Maybe that's why I've gone through those things, because I'm supposed to make a difference with my story. And I feel like that's what I'm hearing from your story, is that like you've been forged through all of these things to just show the world that it's possible and you can come out on the
Do-
other side in a better.
Have you heard the phoenix
Yes.
rising from the ashes? And obviously, that's just such an empowering image. I actually have an art series that I did depicting that. It was very powerful when at the point that I did it. But it feels like for some of us, you just keep going through that. It's like now this fire and now this fire and these burning bridges and this reincarnation of myself. And I do feel like that reinvention is very unique to some people. And some of us have gone through many different versions of ourselves in this life experience. And some people look the same as they did in elementary school. And you see them at 65 and you're like, you are still
Ah,
Tommy Pickles. Stop. You are like it's
exactly.
like a cartoon character getting older. It's like no change, no character development. And there are others of us. I used to joke that I could have been a good spy because I could put a photo of me in every different year. I have different hairstyles. My face seems to change. People are like, this is not the same person. And I used to think that was like fun and cool. And then through sobriety and through some other changes in my life, I realized what some of those behaviors really were. I started to peel back the onion of myself and say, who am I? Why do I make the decisions that I make? And I feel like it's that introspection paired with all of those hobbies and interests and careers that I have, those things that influenced who I am, kind of the nature and nurture combination that makes me confident to speak on the things that I've been through, just like you, because I started Toastmasters when I was 18 years old. Like, what
Oh,
18-year-old is
yeah,
getting up and giving speeches about themselves in like articulate manners, like with timers and old people
yeah,
and stuff? Like 18, I'm
yeah.
doing that. So
That's
fast
awesome.
forward, I was a college professor. I taught public speaking. And so it's like, why would I be quiet now? It's like
Yeah,
when I had the confidence to stand up and share my story at every one of those stages, now I've got the story to tell.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much. So then, how did you become such a self-aware and reflective person? Because there's people that go through things,
Mhm.
and like you said, they could still then just be the same person and not evolve. How did you get to that point?
I feel like the way that you were saying that you were forged in
Yeah,
utero and like all of the, I feel like it's like when somebody asks, when did you become an artist? You feel like I've always been an artist. But I feel like when I was growing up with my mom being who she was as a corporate executive, at the time it was the early 90s. I was born in 90. And so for her, that's really glass ceiling breaking years.
yeah,
When the late 70s, early 80s, for her to be a corporate executive was ridiculous. To be a vice president, and I say ridiculous in a good way.
yeah.
She's
Like it
one of
was
the
unheard
first
of.
around her.
Yeah,
Exactly. And so I had a flipped life experience, right? I had a stay-at-home dad and a mom that was in corporate America, and I got to watch my mom be the breadwinner. And so I was so proud of her. And I feel like being aware of that from a young age then made me know from that's a built-in role model of someone to look up to and say I can be what she is because I see her doing it. And I would read the books that she read. So she would read Who Moved My Cheese, which is a business change
yes.
management book, and I would read Who Moved My Cheese for teens, and there would be What Color is Your Parachute for teens and Seven Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And I was really like between 13 and 15 absorbing all of these like self-help books,
Oh
and so
gosh.
you're not even that, but it made me what am I bound to? And it's like doing the Myers-Briggs test as like a
Yeah.
preteen. Like that's so ridiculous that I got this head start on it. But that's where by 17 I was going to like leadership development conferences at 17 instead of summer
Gosh.
camp. That's what I was doing.
That's
By the time I
awesome.
get to college, I'm like, I could teach this class. I have such this ego of self-awareness that some people are just like they get to stay kids for so long. And I do
Yeah.
think it's a bit of a consequence of growing up quickly that I may be so far along on this journey, but that's only because some of it was like survival mode and some of it
Yeah.
was like a hyper awareness of things around me to be able to respond to them. So a
Ah,
combination.
I love that. Listen, I'm very much into personal growth, but it's been like the last 10
Yeah,
years of my life. And so I feel like
that's still a lot more than most. Let's be
yes,
real.
yes, yes. And I like to listen to a lot of books rather
Mm,
than reading with my eyeballs because I was a single mom with three kids and I didn't have time for sitting
yeah,
down and reading.
yeah.
So I listened with my ears to books and I would put these books on. My kids know the energy bus like nobody's business. And I bought the book and I let my kids read it as well. So they've been introduced to this personal growth stuff. They're not into it right now, but that is just even a little bit. And I'm like, yes, I'm like totally winning in this like parent thing. It's awesome because I feel like my youngest daughter is so much more self-aware of emotions
Mm,
and yes, does she go through her teenage stuff? Absolutely. She's
mhm.
17 and doing all the things. However, she can articulate her emotions in such a mature way that I'm just like, Oh my gosh, kid. Who are you?
Isn't it fun to hear other people like use the therapy words? It rubs off on my fiance a bit, and he started using the word gaslighting like left and right. But we'll be
Oh,
watching like cooking shows and we'll be watching like football, and he'll be like, "This is gaslighting." And I'm like, "Actually, that's a really appropriate use of that." And I'm
very
proud of him for like
yeah.
for
Even
pointing
use
out the flags. Yeah.
even using that himself. That is awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like, what impact did identifying these patterns of like thrill seeking to avoid grief have on your life?
Well, I feel like realizing that was the pattern came with sobriety, right? And it was always feeling like maybe it's because I'm the middle child, maybe it's because I'm the only girl growing up in the Midwest. There's all these kind of like influences and subcultural layers that you could deduce in your life when you're like looking at the filters. But it was that struggle for attention. It was like wanting to have people look at you, but look at you and be proud of things, or look at you and smile, and look at you and find joy from what you were bringing to that experience. And so I felt like what felt easy in that way was being the class clown, was like
Yeah,
being the person who was like so ridiculous, whether it was with what I was wearing or what my hair was or how I was acting. And in some ways that can seem really fun and bubbly and gregarious, and in other ways it's like really unhealthy. I remember in middle school I would like make myself fall down the stairs because kids I could make people laugh. It was like unhealthy ways of, hey, look at me. It's like
speaking.
slapstick. Yeah, and so I feel like when you're a woman, not to always make it like that, but I do feel like it's totally different because a slapstick kind of guy could maybe even stay that kind of persona, but as a woman you change that look at me to maybe it's a more sexual look at me. Maybe it's a
Yeah,
more, I used to think that I had this persona that was like a Bond girl. Because I joked about having the different hairstyles and like, oh, I could be a spy. And I was like, I'm the honeypot. I was like,
yeah,
I was out there thinking that I could just like do whatever I wanted because it felt like Sex in the City. It felt like
yeah,
I'm a confident woman making these choices and I'm doing it for myself. But it was also very, I don't know, eccentric. I don't really know the right word, but it's that thrill seekingness. It's like being so sensational that people started to just expect that from me. The more
yeah.
ridiculous of something that I did, I'd have this like crazy story, and I'm good at telling stories.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, I can spin a tale, but it was like at the expense of myself. It was like self-deprecating actions that I was taking. And it doesn't look like that or feel like that when you're spinning it through. It's kind of like when you have somebody who does PR and
Yeah,
something happens to a celebrity and you have to spin it and say, no, it's this lens and this is what happened in the context of why it makes sense and stuff. And I feel like I was doing so much of that in my world to
yeah,
convince people that, oh no, it's cool. Oh no, it's confident. And I'm like, I'm really just not happy with the decisions that I'm making. I'm not hanging out with people that really bring me joy and give me what I need in this world. And that we're not doing things that I would choose if I was in charge of what we were doing. And it's like when you realize those patterns and you start to pull them back and you say, oh, that's why I keep dating this kind of person. That's why I keep ending up in this kind of job. That's why this kind of life, home life feels safe to me. And you start pulling these things back, and then you have to decide now that you've seen it,
yeah,
am I going to respond to it or am I going to stay in it? And some people are fully aware of the situation that they're in. Some people have their eyes open and go, oh no, I'm just choosing this. But to look at it and say, I do want something different, I feel like that is so powerful. And going back to the purpose of this podcast and the purpose of my book, I feel like that's the gift that I want to give people is telling them. Sometimes it's like you're never too old to follow your dreams, like you're never too old to start that podcast, Brenda, or you're never too old to be a basketball star, Todd, whatever it is. I'm there to say the opposite. You're never too
yeah,
young to change something in your life because we're just going to keep careening until somebody like gives us that wake up call and gives us that intervention that's like, your health is this bad, you need to change your diet. And you have to be like told you need to
yeah,
change. But when you feel that and you have those gut instincts that say, I don't like this anymore, or this isn't the right environment for me, when you're able to change that, I think that's incredibly powerful.
yeah. I got married super young, and from just knowing a little bit of your story, so I was sexually assaulted at 16.
Ooh,
Didn't tell anybody, kept it to myself for
right.
3 years. When I went to my first well woman checkup at 18 by myself, I was told that I had cervical cancer. So he had given me the HPV virus that caused cancer. And because I was never checked out after everything, there was it was just down the line already. I was
Mm,
living in dis-ease. So it created this disease. I was
right.
holding all of that grief and that turmoil in. And so it caused this, evolved into this disease. And so at 18, I had cancer, I had surgery. At 19, it had come back. The doctor was like, we'll do some surgery again. However, you probably won't be able to have kids. And I'm like, what?
Wow,
And
that's a lot to absorb all at once.
all at once, yeah. So I was engaged at the time with my ex-husband, and so we got married. I was 19 years old, a baby. I was a
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
Oh my God. I look back and I'm like, I have two 20-plus-year-olds. I can't even fathom them being ready to be married, have kids, and all the things.
Yeah.
So I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I grew up and got into the corporate world and so forth. I had a very successful career in the travel industry. And when I was 28 and I had been with my ex-husband at the time for almost 10 years and we had been married for almost 8, I was like, I'm not happy. And I had 3 little kids. I went through
Mm,
fertility treatment and had my oldest when I was 21. Then by the time I was 25, I had 3 kids under 5 years old, which was bananas.
right.
Um, but then for a year, I was just like, I want to have my friend back. Let's talk. Let's have a
Mm.
conversation. Let's be friends again as well. It shouldn't just be work and come home and sleep. And we don't even talk. And
It's
so
like bad roommates, not even.
yes, it's not, yes, like roommates at least talk to each other. This is not
Yeah.
even okay. And so I went through like this life-altering decision that I was not happy, and we didn't have a bad relationship in terms of we weren't yelling at each other. It wasn't
Mhm.
anything like that, but I decided that I was not happy, and I decided at that moment to do the uncomfortable thing and say I would rather be the example of my kids seeing me happy, and that is the example that they grow up seeing, than showing them how to live a miserable life when two people are just forced to be together because of XYZ. And it was really hard. My parents were upset with me. Everyone was mad at me. And against everybody's choices, I was like, no, I really feel this is the right thing for me and my kids.
And nobody was like she was a baby when they decided to. Nobody was like maybe they did rush into the.
Nope, not at all.
Wow.
And I think now looking back, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that was the right decision." But it wasn't the easy way out. It
Right.
was actually really, really tough. My oldest daughter dealt with a lot of mental health issues that I dealt with by myself. About 10 years ago, she had been diagnosed as bipolar disorder. She was like 12.
Mm.
And I was super unhealthy, and it was always the kids and work and that's it. And I never took the time to put my oxygen mask on first and take
Oh
care of
yeah.
myself, right? Because that's not what we do. We just like give,
Right.
give, give. The cancer came back. And so it was like all the things mounting on top
So
of
that's
each
like
other.
cancer number 3.
Cancer number 3 came back, yes. I was 32 years old, and my daughter was really struggling. I was really struggling to parent her. And then the other 2 younger ones were struggling because a lot of attention was given to her. And all around it
Yeah.
was just a shit show. And so I decided at that moment that, okay, I need to work on myself and I need to put my oxygen mask on first. I need to get healthy. Just like you said, there that moment that something happens that the doctor's like, well, you need to make sure you take care of you
Right.
because you may not be here if you continue. And
Mm.
so it was a lot of those eye-opening moments that I was just like, oh my goodness. But I started to eat right, take care of myself, work out, listen to personal development, and got into this headspace where I evolved that by the time that the cancer came back the fourth time and I went to go have the hysterectomy later that year, the doctor a week later tells me, Maria, there was no signs of cancer. And I was
Gosh.
like, oh my gosh. So it was like all these feelings. Number one, why the heck did I do this surgery? Because now I'm like full blown in menopause at 32 years old.
Yeah,
But at the same time, gosh, how awesome is it that I took charge of my life and did things that helped me get to this point? So it was the life happening for me and not to me kind of mentality. And those are just, I feel like, those moments where the reflection of the big news that you get that kind of hits you upside the head, and they're like, well, either change or there'll be further consequences. And yeah, I really connect with what you were talking about because I've had those experiences and I know that you have as well.
that's crazy. Well, I'm sorry that it came back so much. And in the bio that you read about me, and you heard all that stuff about like the nonprofit co-founder, that's actually a breast cancer awareness nonprofit that we have because my
Oh,
mom is a cancer survivor and she's like a I want to say like a 15-year breast cancer
oh,
survivor, but through that community and the fact that from her diagnosis, we've actually had a nonprofit music festival every year up in Minnesota. And even through the pandemic, we did virtual festivals. So we've got such a tight, close, tight-knit community of the people in that cancer world, whether it is the
yeah,
people who have been undergoing treatment or the people who are just friends and family and kind of these like collateral damage of cancer
yeah,
because they're not the person that it's happening to, but they're still impacted by it. It's
yeah,
just they're so near and dear to us, and they are just such a passionate community. And there's such an overlap with women's health of the breast cancer community and ovarian cancer and just I have so many friends that are either like on their way to a hysterectomy or just had one or in fertility treatments. And so like the whole
yeah,
gamut of things that we deal with as women. And then obviously on top of it, the breast cancer and things that are a little more well known, despite the
yeah,
fact that we still say that we're raising awareness for it. It's like, can we skip to some of the more rare ones? Because maybe
yeah.
some of those could use some attention now that we know about boobs, but that's
Yeah,
that's my take
absolutely.
on it. So
I agree 100%. After I had the hysterectomy, when the doctor's like, well, I'd still recommend you having a pap smear every year. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have
what are you
anything.
even smearing? Like
What are you smearing? Why do you put me still through so much torture still? And he was like, well, you can actually get vaginal cancer. I was like, what? It blew my mind. I was just like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll continue to do this because I'm gonna make sure that I advocate for myself and my health and I'm gonna be on top of it. But that blew my mind because who
mm,
knows about that? No one. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I agree. Let's bring awareness to some of these rare cancers that we don't really hear about and know about that can definitely impact you in many ways as well.
yeah.
So, absolutely. How have you changed to support the version of you that you'd like to be?
Well, so after all the self-discovery and
Yeah.
after like, I don't know, you like to have a little coming out party where like, this is me now. You
Yeah.
just kind of like start living your life as your new version of yourself. And I feel like there are different ways to reinforce that in your life. And I feel like one of them is boundaries. And it's weird to maybe start with one that's not so like fluffy and positive of like self-care or something.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to start with elimination and actually saying like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to take this action. I'm not going to have this reaction. And I'm not going to let this person in closer than they need to be. And I feel like when you start to do that, it's not so much what each one of those answers was. It's the fact that you put the thought into it to have gone through that exercise and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this. And kind of going through that whole cycle and say, I respect myself enough to say I'm not bringing this person in because I feel like that's another one of those ping pong or those like the paddle and the ball thing
Yeah.
that just keeps coming back and hitting you is bad relationships or people that you feel like you have to entertain or you have to act or react a certain way. And going back to those thrill-seeking behaviors that I had, a lot of times people, they keep seeing you as that version of you, right? And so
Yeah.
they see you and they're like dance monkey and they're like they want you to perform and be like this marionette, and I'm not that anymore. And so by being confident and standing in that truth and saying, oh, I'm not in the mood, or I don't do that anymore, and things like that, and pushing back against the expectations of others,
Yeah.
or not even feeling the need to reply. If it's on the internet and things like that, I don't waste a whole lot of time with things like that because I feel like some people get so obsessed with giving the same amount of reaction and response to everything and everyone. And I used to do that. And
Oh,
I'm
me
like,
too.
oh, actually, like, you don't deserve an explanation anymore. You've had a decade and a half of me spelling it out for you and spoon feeding it. And I don't care if you are sad that I just poof out of your life. Blame it
Yeah.
on Thanos. It's just
Yeah.
like, I'm gone. You have the relationship with me that you deserve. And it's not all spicy like that, but it's like those become, that's the first line of defense is the
Yeah.
boundaries. And then I feel like within that, I have a whole workshop where I like know their authentic heart and set these boundaries for themselves and stuff. But then in the inner part of that, that's where you start to get really creative with it. And one of my favorite things to talk about is building rituals in your life.
Hmm.
And ritual has such a loaded
Yeah.
phrase with it, right? There's like religious rituals and then there's the kind of the witchy side of rituals. But what I mean when I say it is just something done intentionally.
Yeah.
It could be the way you do laundry. Like it doesn't have to be any deeper meaning than that. It's just like, do I do this on autopilot? Do I do this kind of robotically? Or am I looking at like how I do it? And actually, I'm going to fold a scrunchie like this and then like this all the time. And it might
Yeah.
be a little OCD, sure, but it also can be really fun to build these things into your life that whether it's just something that makes you smile or if it's something that is a little bit deeper and kinder and you can say, this is a gift I'm giving to myself. A great example I always use is making overnight oats. So
Uh-huh.
it's just like a little mason jar, and I like prep all my ingredients and I put it in the fridge before bed. And it's not every night, but when I do it, I say that it's like delicious love letter to myself. And I like put
Yeah.
it in there. And then when I wake up, I'm like, oh, my breakfast is made. And it's
Yeah.
simple and it's not elaborate. It's not a big machine that like makes me eggs and bacon and all that stuff. But it's a simple reminder that a past version of myself said,
Was
you're
good.
gonna want this. And it's
You're
like,
taking care of yourself
yes,
or yeah.
yes. And so it's like little rituals like that, I feel like are so healthy and they don't cost anything. And it's more of like doing everything you normally have to do in your life with more intention and gratitude.
I love that so much. So I come from a Hispanic household that let's just say I didn't learn how to eat vegetables until I was like 25, 30 years old. Let's
Chicharron is a vegetable. Come on.
so I didn't eat very healthy. And 10 years ago when I started to like really hone in onto my
Mm,
nutrition and all of that, that I started to do meal prep. And that felt like a gift to myself because I am not a huge fan of the kitchen and it's just not my favorite place to be. I've always been the worker. I've always been out of the house, and my sister was the one that my mom had like let me teach her how to cook, and I
mm,
didn't do any of that. I worked with my dad since I was little, and that was my happy place. So granted, I don't like the kitchen very much, but when I meal prepped, I felt like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate this time
mhm,
on a Sunday, for example, to prepping for the week. And I know that I will have a healthy meal, that I will have done it with love, and I will incorporate time with the kids because they would help me like pack the little baggies with the vegetables. It was just something that I we made a ritual when they were younger and so forth. And I was just like, oh, this is like a little present to future me that's gonna be like gobbling this up and saying, "Oh, yay, this is good, nutritious stuff that
and you
you
don't have
know,
to make decisions, right? And
no."
it's like, and you're saving money, and there's all these other costs or these other benefits that are associated beyond just, I
Yeah.
got the meal ready.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. It's like a little love letter to yourself. Like, I thought about you, boo boo. Here you
Yeah.
go.
And think about it, it's not for everybody. It's not a Thanksgiving meal or Friendsgiving, whatever. It's like, this is for me, by me, for me. There
Yeah.
you go, future me.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's a really good way of putting it because yeah, that is definitely what that feels like. Just when I meditate in the mornings or when I work out in the mornings, I know that by the end of the day, like this morning I had a great leg workout. Perfect. I work out from home. I don't go out to the gym and do anything just because I again, time. But I had a good 25-30 minute workout in my little gym out here and I feel so much better right now than I would have if I had not done it. So little things that just make the future you a little happier.
Yeah, and they don't always have to be like food related. They can be like related to your routines or like I said with
Yeah.
laundry or like how you put your things away. It's just like
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah, I agree. I used to let the laundry just sit after it was done. I would just let it sit in the basket and just pick out of that. And I've gotten to a point that I'm like, I don't know if it's my age, I don't know. But as soon as it's done, I want it folded and put away because then if not, then it's like an additional mess that I don't need to
Yeah,
worry
yeah.
about. I love that.
And when it really takes such a short amount of time, like I
Yeah.
don't know what the barrier is with ourselves where we'll look at something and be like, oh my God, I can't do that task. And you're like, yo, it is like 10 minutes and you'll spend 35 scrolling on whatever. Like,
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh, yeah. I could listen to a good book while I'm folding
yeah,
laundry. It's perfect. Yeah, my boyfriend still leaves it there, not even folded, just in the basket done. And I'm like,
he's
ah,
on his journey.
he's on his journey. I have to just. Okay, so what practice has made the biggest difference in your healing journey?
Ooh, well, we've already been talking about some good ones. Let's see. Maybe I should give. So I have a witchy one. So that maybe
Okay,
I'll start with that one. And it's
I
only
like what
because
you
so since you're local, I'll do a little shout out to a small business. In Orlando, there's a place called Spiral Circle, and it's a
uh-huh.
bookstore right off of Mills. So it's in like the Mills 50 type area
Okay.
off Colonial. And it's this tiny little bookstore, and they have a tea room thing that I think they're opening anyway. They sell crystals, they sell a bunch of really awesome things like that. I've done
Love
some
it.
workshops there, and I think I was at one of their grand opening, or they are having like maybe a Halloween event, and I
Hmm.
met this woman who was setting up as a vendor there. And I'll forget her name, but if I get it to you by the time, we'll like put her link in the comments or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And so I was able to get this like goddess oil, and it was like 11/11 goddess oil. And I feel like it's kismet that I share this because we're filming this on 11/11.
I know.
Portal vibes. But
Thanks.
anyway, it's just like a little vial, and I wish it was nearby that I could just grab it, but it's this little vial, and the oil itself, because it's oil, it looks gold. And it's filled with these beautiful herbs, and the aromas are incredible. Like whatever blend she makes is absolute fire. And it has a little dropper. And
Hmm.
one of my favorite routines and rituals that I've created with this, because you can put it in your hair, you can put it on your skin, it's oil, so you can
Yeah.
do anything, but they recommend put it on your pulse points. So every night before bed, I take the little dropper out and I put 3 drops on my left wrist. And then I just go like this and just rub it between my wrists and my elbow pulse points. But what's interesting about the 3 droplets, the witchy part of all of this, is that I feel like by being more present in not just who I am in this experience, but my connection to the divine. So whether you take that in a religious sense and it's our Father who art in heaven, or you want to
Yeah.
take it to the moon or a goddess or a spirit or whatever you're called to envision when you hear the that you're connected to something bigger than yourself, I can channel through it. And it's not big dramatic. You're not at a seance getting messages from like ghosts nearby or
Yeah.
stuff. But by doing this ritual so repeatedly and so intentionally, when I do those 3 drops, one word comes into my head for each one of those drops. And I don't, it's like you think about a Ouija board and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're telling it the words you want to hear. You're just
Yeah.
saying words and stuff. But here's the joke, because it's the placebo effect. So
Yeah.
even if I am saying those words, it's because I'm picking those words because I need those words. So whether or not it is a message from somewhere else or it's me feeding myself things that I need and I'm gifting to myself, they're both beautiful. So ha,
Yeah.
I win either way. So you can't debunk me because I win. And I just kind of like blend it in. And then I go to bed protected by those words. And it's just, it could be anything from wisdom, love, peace, or protection, patience, discipline. It could be anything.
Yeah.
It's whatever pops up first. And it's like drawing tarot cards.
Yeah.
Obviously, the card is what it is, the word means what it is, but it's my interpretation of why I needed that or why that came up. And I could either have a reaction, a response to those words that go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way. And then it's making me see something in a new light. Or I can go, oh, exactly. I definitely need this because I'm calling out for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind
Either
of like, why
way.
are you eating? Is it because
Yeah.
there's food or are you hungry? Well, both can be true and one might lead to the other, but we're still going to have
Exactly.
a great meal.
Oh my God, how have we not met in real life? I feel so incredibly connected to you. And yes, I'm all about
We might
taking,
actually know the same people. And now that we
we
know that we're local, like if we look this up, like we probably,
we
it's Orlando.
probably
We
have.
probably do know.
Yes, because there's a lot of the same. Yeah, you probably
Yeah.
have a lot of my friends as your friends. That's so great. I can't wait. I can't wait to explore this a little bit further. Maybe we need to do another podcast after the
Yes.
meeting. But I love that so very much. When my kids were younger, and I was really trying to, again, we were dealing with a lot of mental health at the household.
Mm.
And so I was always trying to do whatever I could to, because to me, purple is obviously my favorite color, but to me, I want to radiate my purple energy. I have a
I
lady
see it
at
in the glasses.
Yeah, they're all there. There's a lady at work that calls me the purple energy girl, and I'm like, yes, I feel like purple just gives me peace. So, anyways, when I was dealing with all of the things, mornings were always the toughest for us because my daughter did not want to wake up in the mornings. She hated going to school, like the whole process. It was always a fight. And so before they left my car for school in the mornings, I would have them say what we called their wonderfuls. And I would say, okay, give me your wonderfuls today. And so they would repeat, something wonderful will happen to me today. And they would repeat it 4 times because we're four. It was me and them at the time by ourselves. And they would tell me 3 things that they were grateful for and 3 I am statements. And it was kind of the way that they started their quote unquote work day, their school day, whatever,
Yeah.
going into something claiming that I'm a good student, I'm smart, I'm healthy, whatever. And every day would be like if they said something too repeatedly, I would say, no, give me something different. And so it was like my way of teaching them that's what you would start with the claim, the intention that you're putting into your day. And then at the end of the day, when I would pick them up, I would say, so how was your day? Oh, it was good. What was so good about it? So that it would always highlight those things, the positive, and then I would allow the moment for and what wasn't so great about the day because
Mm.
I want to make sure that both, because you can't have one without the other. You don't know that today is great if you haven't gone through tough days. So I really feel like
And then they feel like they can share it with you because
yes.
otherwise it's like, oh, well, mom only wants to hear my wins. I'm just going to hide all my sad times and not share them with her. I think that's awesome to balance
Yeah.
it.
So my son, I knew that he was gay from a very early age. However, so one of the things that I felt that I didn't get when I was growing up was the ability to talk about the tough things. Hence why I didn't tell them that I was raped at 16 and I kept it
Same.
to myself. So one of my main goals when I was ready to be a parent, I said, I want my kids to be able to talk to me about anything and everything. And so that was my goal, is to be open enough with my story with them so that they knew that tough things can happen and I would be open to hearing their tough times as well. When my son came out, he came out to me first, and he was 12 when he came out to me. He was, I think, 18 when he came out to his dad. And so to me, that showed that at least they know that they can always come to me with mom will, it doesn't matter the speech you'll get, but know that mom is always there and will always have your back and support you. Because yes, I want them to be able to come to me when tough times are like upon them, because
Yeah.
it's inevitable.
You're such a good mom.
Oh, thanks. I try. I really, really try because it's not easy when it's all by yourself. So, what should readers expect to learn from your book?
Well, at the time of this recording, there is some revisions to the book. So I've stopped giving exact stories and, oh, this anecdote is in here because some of it might end up on my Substack, some of it might actually land in the book. I've been very grateful that there have been some people in my life that I've wanted to write about and I've wanted to share their story, but then I had to clear it with them. And then once I got the green light, I wrote it, and some of those kind of got edited out. And so it makes me feel sad that I'd go back to them and be like, oh, you didn't make it into the book, but it's still very powerful to me. So some of those things will be shared on my Substack. But I think the main theme, especially going back to the title, Dead Serious, How Death Made Me Laugh at Life, I don't mean it in an insensitive way. And I feel like that's the first thing that comes to mind is that if you're laughing at death, then you're being insensitive, you're being patronizing, you're not taking it seriously and giving it the reverence that it deserves. And I feel like if I can explain to your viewers who aren't just listening to this, the reason why my face is so puffy is actually because I've been crying all day because I'm grieving. I found out that I lost someone really important to me. And I think that being able to hold the space for those emotions and actually being able to feel those things, I feel like that's the purpose of the book. And so I feel like the first line of it, if it's able to stay in there, is welcome to an uncomfortable book. This is not the kind of thing that's maybe a hungry read that you're binging through and you're like, oh, it keeps going and getting more exciting and I can't wait to hear what happens next. I imagine that some of the stories will even be triggering for some people. I'm not going into graphic detail, but even some of the subject matter that you covered in the bio that I talk about, subjects about death and sexual assault and suicide, those are subjects that everybody has a different experience with, and maybe not always traumatic, but it's not the kind of stories that you're really going to be like chomping at the bit to read more of. But I think that just the takeaway is being able to find light in dark moments. And that's a very general sense, right? So it's not just saying, okay, I lost someone, and so now I'm going to pretend like I'm not sad and I'm going to ignore it and just laugh. Like that's where it's a toxic positivity, and I don't
Mhm.
recommend that for people. But you also shared in my bio that I've shared my stories of addiction and anger. And I feel like when you have this pent up energy of you're mad at the world for losing this person, or you're just mad that everything feels unfair and you have these emotions, it's okay for us, especially as women, to have these big emotions and feel them because there are so many times, and I'm sure that you know this as a mom, that you're not supposed to be seen as an angry mom and definitely not an angry Latina woman. Just you better bottle
Uh-huh.
that shit up, baby, and that's how you need to be. And I feel like we're all given that script. So the tagline I've been using is I want to help people get better, not bitter. Because
Yeah.
it's so easy to just be angry at the world. And it's so easy to be like, well, life dealt me this hand, so I'm entitled to be this nasty. And I feel like all the stories in the book, especially what my mother's been through and the people that we've lost along the way, it would be so easy for us to just look at the world and be like, well, then I'm going to hate it and I'm going to add more nasty to it because it's already nasty. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is the greatest act of rebellion and defiance is to be happy in this life, is to
Yes.
color everything purple and have rainbows everywhere. And I'm sitting here next to my little stuffed animal who's my emotional support animal
I love
and
it.
do really whimsical things and do
Yeah.
ridiculous things. And that's what it needs to be because otherwise we're living someone else's dream. We're
Yeah.
not really being authentic. And it's not to say that you have to love purple or have an elephant or do any of these things. It's the fact that you find the whimsy in your own life. You look at the trauma, you acknowledge it, and you take the time that you need to heal in whatever way that you need. But then you realize that there is joy out there, there is happiness. And it's not to say, and it's not at the same time as really difficult things, but they all exist and there's that ebb and flow. And I feel like that's what the readers are gonna have a lot of.
I'm really excited for this because I feel like I will connect with it. I just had a another author on the podcast, and I his book just came out, and I it was such a great he's a very great storyteller, and I laughed and cried in multiple sections of that book. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what gives you a great story. And the fact that this is his story is that much more powerful, because that means that life has had its ebbs and flows, and he's been able to find the light in the really dark moments, and not in the toxic positivity way, but in the way
Right.
that I was really down in these moments, and these were really hard moments, and then I can still find light in life. And I love that so much. That just makes my heart so happy just to, I can't wait. I can't wait because I'm going to gobble it up. I'm all about stories. I feel like stories help us connect people in a way that doesn't allow us to feel lonely in situations where we feel like we're all alone. So I'm so excited. So just to wrap it up, what limiting beliefs or roadblocks do you feel you've had to overcome in order to get to where you are today?
Well, again, what chapter are we in? Limiting roadblocks and beliefs. I feel like so many of these are just handed down to us, whether it's like I was talking about of, was it because I'm the middle child or the only girl or raised in the Midwest? What did your family structure look like? And
Yeah.
that's what I talk about in the book too, is that some of the ways that our family was formed and some of the things that led to the family structure that we have of my mom being corporate and my dad staying home, all of those decisions informed who I am as a person and set me up in this environment that said you can exist and you can flourish in this way. And that's not to discount the privilege that comes along with that, whether the fact that we're white and where we grew up and what the jobs that my mom had and all these different things that comes into play with it, because then as I go through my experiences, will people listen to me in different ways, and do I blend in or stand out in different ways? And I feel like there's so much of that with identity. And so I feel like when you have those, every single one of those labels that I said has a set of like, you're expected to do this, right?
Yeah.
So then the easy thing, right, the quote unquote easy thing, is just fall into all those stereotypes and do all the things that are expected of you as a white woman in the Midwest and the yada yada, and like of childbearing ages and stuff, and the fact that I
Yeah.
don't have a kid and things like that. Or there's the kind of counterculture side of things. It's like, I'm going to look at that list of should do's and I'm going to throw in the face of it. And sometimes your intention of why you are against the norm, is it because you feel like going against the norm because you're rebelling against it and be like, well, I'd really love to do this, but I don't want to give you the satisfaction, so I'm going to do this to
Yeah.
rebel? Or is it that's what you're really drawn to? So again, just like before, it doesn't really matter what your answer is. It matters that you're going to the intention of it,
Yeah.
because
And be
it's like,
authentic.
yeah, it's like holding up two dresses, right? Like if I held up two dresses and asked you, like, Maria, which one do you like better? But I was going to wear it, I would take your opinion and then I would still either go, yeah, we agreed, or screw you, I'm just going to wear the one I want. And I feel like that's what you have to do. It's not about the question or about the answer, it's about your interpretation of the whole experience. And I think that's life. And so I feel like the limiting beliefs are that I have to do any of the should do's, and
Hmm.
that instead of looking at it as this like naughty and nice list of if you do these things, that's what people are going to reward you for, and it's you're going to receive praise and it's a positive thing to do. And then the opposite of that, I just live every day as an experience, and I'm grateful for waking up. And
Hmm.
yes, I feel this way. And I also talk extensively through other podcasts in the book about my chronic pain journey, because I've had a number, part of the near death experiences are that you come up a little banged up. And I
Yeah.
was like in MMA and I did all this fighting, so my body is just wrecked. I said I was on a heating pad, not just for the cold, but because of the back injuries and stuff. And I feel like I would have the understanding that I could just wake up and be mad every day. But it's just waking up and saying, what's going to happen today? And I will hold space for the emotions. And I mentioned I was crying because I had heard this sad news of my friend's passing. And in a weird way of like self-awareness while this was happening today, I was like sitting here at the computer and I saw the news about it. And I just like held my hand sitting on the desk. I was leaned forward and I was just like holding and I was crying, but I was like very conscious of the fact that instead of being quick to like wipe my tears away and stay upright and be like, oh, I have to be in my computer, I have to keep doing, I have to like put on this brave face, I like let myself soften. And I held my head in my hands. And it was that like gentle compassion for myself that says, you can cry here. You're home. who are you putting this act on for? It's no one's next to you, no one's, and I think part of that is that I was a college professor, I was a teacher, and so that it wanting to keep face and stay, but I'm not in front of anybody. And having that gentleness, I feel like that is overcoming those mental blocks and those things that say you can't cry and you can't show this emotion and you're supposed to bottle it up. I feel better now later in the day having this podcast with you because I allowed myself to have that emotion and I held space, to borrow a phrase, but I held space for that emotion and said, it's okay here. And then I promptly ran upstairs and requested a hug from my fiance. But I gave that to myself first. It's like, I'm going to let you have this moment. And I feel like people just feel too busy to give that to themselves. But yeah,
Yeah,
feel
I
your
agree.
feelings.
I love that so much. And then last thing, what daily habits or rituals would you say you have helped you reach the level of success where you are today?
Well, I feel like besides the ones that we've already talked about, the kind of more fun rituals, I feel like the obvious one to bring up is just my sobriety from alcohol and how much I felt like alcohol really was my gateway drug. Right. There were all of these times where it felt like the cool thing to do, the way to fit in, the way to be that people pleaser or the person who was just going to be like the life of the party, that you could just say yes to alcohol and keep drinking more and more and more. And then there's that kind of tomboyish, I'm going to keep up with these people and drink for drink, and I'm much smaller. That's irresponsible. That kind of leads you to those phases. So I phrased this in a way that I guess sounded confusing before, but I like to say kind of like a Snapchat streak. The only reason why I'm sober for almost 8 years now is that every day I did a little bit of not drinking.
Yeah.
And so somebody heard that and they're like, oh, you only drink a little bit? I'm like, no,
No,
I just
no.
mean that I didn't set out and step my foot out until tomorrow and said, let's go for 12 years. No, it's that phrase that they say, it's like you get to midnight and then do it again.
Yeah.
So you only have to worry about the next day. And then you know that even if that's a bad day, there's going to be a tomorrow, then there's going to be the
Yeah.
next day to try. And so I feel like the ritual of reminding myself that my life is better without that, because there are definitely, I'm not, December 13th is going to be 8 years. So we're like really close to it. But I'm always like one day at a time. And I'm very proud of the success that I've had. But I don't want people to see that as ego or feeling like it comes easy because there are definitely moments where I side eye something, or I was up in Minnesota on this like rescue mission because my mom was in the hospital, and I'm opening up my brother's fridge where he lives with his wife, and I see a 4 pack of Seagrams, and that bright blue is like calling out to me, or I'm in the grocery store and I see like those frozen margarita packs that I used to drink and stuff. And it's not that I have this urge that I'm gonna need to get my
Yeah.
fix, that I have to like go run over and buy it, but it has enough of a pull that it makes you look and it makes you go, oh, I could. And then it's that little dink that goes in your brain, but you won't. Like
Yeah.
that if you didn't over all these other things that made you mad, made you sad, made you this, made you that, there would be no reason for you just la-di-daing in the grocery store to go buy that or go do that. Or even if you're this emotional about your mom, like it's not worth that. And I feel like that becomes the biggest ritual that I give to myself on easy days where I don't even think about it, and then on those days where I do have those conversations with liquor bottles. But it's those moments where you stand up for yourself or you say that this is more important to me than anything else. And so, yeah, 7+ years later, and I'm still working through those.
Yes. It's like choosing every day to just be present and know what makes you feel good. And I don't drink very much anymore. Not that I don't drink at all, but I used to socially drink a lot. And my
Mhm.
dad, when he was alive, he could not see you come into the house. And do you want me to make you a little drink? Do you like it was just like constant. And it got to a point when I started just it just didn't make me feel good anymore.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the hangover, but I would feel bloated. I would feel yucky the next day, like just foggy, and that I'm just like, no, I'm good. And
Yeah.
that to him was like, what? What are you talking about?
Where's my daughter?
Where's my daughter? And I'm like, I could still be the life of the party just the way that I am. I don't need the drink to make me be that person. And it just became, no, I don't really feel like it.
Yeah.
And it was that choice every day. I don't feel like it.
Random, I know. Do you watch MasterChef? Do you watch any of those cooking shows or anything like that?
I
Oh
don't
wait, no, you
just,
don't really like the
I
kitchen.
don't like the
Okay,
kitchen.
so I laughed when you were giving those stories because I am that person in our relationship. Like
Uh-huh.
he was raised in a house where they cooked, and I was raised by wolves in that
Yeah.
sense. Like we were lucky if we got hamburger helper, okay? It was not
Yeah.
really a home cook, fresh from scratch kitchen. So now we watch a lot of cooking shows to get inspiration because we do try more recipes and it's like motivating me. The point of all this is that on MasterChef, they'll have their normal challenges and then they have team challenges and it's dodgeball style that they're
Yeah.
picking themselves. And I feel like what my sobriety feels like to me is if you were playing that game of dodgeball or if you were on MasterChef on a group challenge, would you pick yourself first for a team?
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like is to look at yourself. And I didn't realize because I was a very confident person, I don't think I realized how much I struggled with self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there were signs, and even in college, I feel like the biggest sign is that I wanted to study this as a concept with people that I was studying communication and I felt like there was a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. That
Yeah.
self-confidence is how you walk into the room, but self-esteem is inward. It's what you feel about yourself. But everybody uses them synonymously, and everybody wants to say, well, self-confidence and self-esteem, like everybody who's confident obviously has good self-esteem and vice versa. But somebody, and I had this whole square of like, if you have high of this and low of that, it was science, it was data to me. And I feel like I was drawn to that because I was experiencing it. And I was
Yeah.
saying, I was crying out through my nerdy research. I was like, I have high confidence and low self-esteem. And I feel like I was trying to figure out if other people felt this way and what you do if people feel this way. And I feel like now that I got rid of the drinking and I
Mm-hmm.
can't do the fighting and I'm left in this state of like calm meditation and gratitude, that I'm able to look at it and say, I can be gentler with myself
Yeah.
and I can respond to who I am today in these ways because I've done all that other work.
Oh my gosh. Sarah, this has been so amazing. I'm so excited
Did we just
to
become best friends?
we totally just became best friends and we probably are in the same circles and we don't even know it,
We
which is
probably are.
awesome. But I am so excited for your book. I cannot wait to update the show notes with the link to the
Yes.
book. So stay tuned. And listeners, I really hope that you got as much from today's episode as I got. This has been amazing. Sarah, thank you for joining me today. And again, I will put all of her information in the show notes. So please stay tuned to that so you can follow her and connect with Sarah. Thank you so much for listening or watching today. Peace out, guys. Love your life. Bye.
Bye.